Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of Loving the Game. And thanks for joining us tonight. I've got a very special guest that I've known for quite a long time, over a number of years, that I've asked to join us on the show. And I really hope you guys are going to enjoy it. His name is Johan Ferreira, and he's currently living in Cape Town. And the way I got to know Johan was actually through work. When I started working at SuperSport, he was one of the journalists at Blitz, SuperSport Blitz, for those that know it. And yeah, that's how our paths met or crossed, and basically we got to know each other. How's it, Johan? How are you doing?
Yeah, hello, Jock. It's great to see you again after all these years, and doing well under the circumstances. Still a lot to be grateful for, and a real privilege to be on your show tonight.
Oh, thanks so much for joining. Tell us, Johan, if you can just quickly give the people that are watching an idea of who you are and what do you do.
Yeah, so I was born and bred in Newcastle in Northern Natal. I'm 41 years old. I can give that away. I think the lack of hair will show that I'm on the wrong side of 20 and 30. So experienced in life, I guess. Grew up in Northern KwaZulu-Natal, matriculated at a school called Ferrum High School. Newcastle, synonymous with a couple of big names. Bakkies Botha, we'll claim Bakkies Botha. Anton Pitto, that used to play for the Cheetahs and the Bulls, played sevens rugby as well for South Africa. Willie Webner, who played provincial rugby, some of the big names to come out of Newcastle. I guess Newcastle was due for a journalist of some sorts, and that's where I came in. And started with SuperSport Blitz in 2007. Funny enough, my first shift was the opening game of the Rugby World Cup in 2007. It was Argentina and France. I'll never forget that moment. Was privileged enough to work as a rugby commentator during my time, covered the FIFA World Cup in 2010, the FIFA Confederations Cup in 2009. Those were some of the highlights of my career. And also very blessed to have done a Currie Cup final under 21 and under 19. I did the Currie Cup final as a commentator, Afrikaans commentator, with Werner Swanepoel, who used to play for the Boks as a number 9. A great journey. A lot happened. Spent 10 years of my life at SuperSport Blitz. A lot of shifts, a lot of hours, but all worth it in the greater scheme of things. Today I live in Paarl. I've been Cape Townian for just over 2 years. My family settled here in January 2 years ago, and I was given the opportunity to work as a sales manager in the animal health division, and that's what my job entails. So I moved away from sport media. The majority of my life moved away from sports media, still involved on the side, doing a couple of things, but really a great journey, and very blessed to be able to look back at a lot of opportunities that came my way, and just a nice story to tell.
Yeah, I think you've got a lot of stories to tell, actually. I'm going to stick with SuperSport for a while before we get into the rugby side of things. When they'll cross over anyway. So just to start off, I think you've got a very interesting story as to how your career started. I mean, if you can briefly just tell us. I mean, I obviously know the story, but it was interesting how you got the job and then what you had to actually do to make it happen, because you were living in Newcastle at the moment, at that moment that you got the job, which is, I think, 4 hours or something's drive, from Johannesburg. I could be wrong. If you could just maybe tell us about that story just to start things off.
Yeah, so my journey started when I was a broker's consultant back in the day for an insurance company. And in 2006, I decided to write a mail to SuperSport to ask if they had any positions open. We had a power failure that specific day in Pietermaritzburg. And I remember we closed our doors and we were sitting in a group and talking about what we wanted to become in life. And my then manager asked me if being a broker's consultant was everything I wanted to be in life. and I said to her that my biggest dream and ambition was to work for SuperSport as a rugby commentator. That was my my greatest drive in life, greatest ambition. And she said to me, "So, Johan, why did you never become a commentator?" And I sat for a moment. I really couldn't think of any reasons why I never pursued it. So I wrote a letter to SuperSport asking them if I can have an opportunity to work as a rugby commentator. I'm sure thousands of people do that every month. Never heard of them. I never heard back from them, and I don't blame them. I guess they do that quite often, that they get flooded with emails from people wanting to be the next big thing. And then a month later, I was sitting in front of my computer and thinking to myself that I really thought that they would at least reply and at least say, you know what, thanks for your ambition, but maybe next time. So I phoned and got through to a lady. I don't know if I should mention her name. I think I should rather protect her from many phone calls after this. But I got through to a specific lady, and she said to me, "Okay, Mr. Arrogant, if you think you've got it, we invite you for an audition." Funny enough, we have an audition on Thursday. This was the Monday. So I invite you to come to Johannesburg. Leave at the insurance business, boarded a plane, phoned my cousin who was living in Johannesburg, asked her to pick me up at OR Tampa International, and off we went to Randburg, and I walked in audition, and they gave me a couple of names over a teleprompter to pronounce, and then I did a rugby mock commentating session where they cut the commentary and you become the commentator. And luckily, I had the Sharks and the Lions. And I watched the game on the Saturday. I was watching it at home, so I pretty much knew what was happening. So it made it a touch easier. And then they gave me a over of Test cricket to commentate on, and I remember walking out, and it was if all my dreams had come true. If that was the only stop in my life at SuperSport, it would have been okay. And I remember saying to my cousin that we had to sit at the bottom and just take in the moment and have some tea, and then she could drop me at the airport, and I could fly back to. And we were sitting there, and the guy who was interviewing me came out, and he pointed in my direction, and he wanted me to come back. So I looked over my shoulder thinking, maybe Mars Botha standing behind me or someone like that. I don't think he's pointing my way. And as I turned around, there was no one. So I looked back at him, and he said, "You, come here again." So back we went, and I thought they were really desperate if they wanted to hire me that soon. And he said, "Listen here, just for interest sake, can you do what you've just done in Afrikaans?" And I said to him, "Yes, I am actually Afrikaans. I'm not English. English is my second language." And back I went, and he said, "Please redo all of this in Afrikaans, just for in case, then we at least have an Afrikaans audition of yours on the system." And that was all she wrote. Nothing happened after that. I flew back to Pietermaritzburg, very happy with the way it panned out. And funny enough, it was probably a year later that I received an opportunity to work on the Craven Week in Stellenbosch. So I resigned at the insurance company in that month, thinking that my life was now made. I was going to become a commentator. And then there was a new person taking over in the bookings department for rugby. So that person never knew about me. It wasn't their fault. They never knew about me. I had no contract. So they said, "Sorry, you can't go." So I said, "I've actually just resigned. Please give me that opportunity that I was given." And they said, "Sorry, we admire your courage, but the bookings have been done for the week." So back I went to Newcastle, where I used to live, and it's amazing how things changed. I remember I was phoned a week later by a person named Docky. He was heading up Blitz. It was then called SuperSport Update, and he invited me for an audition at Update, which I then went for. And the iron was that he asked me to cover the Craven Week matches that I was due to commentate on as a journalist, to test out my journalist skills, which I then did. And I did a mock voiceover for Update at that stage, and went back home. And he phoned me. He said, "You know what? I don't think you've got what it takes at this stage. Very strong accent. Probably not going to happen now." So, long story short, September, I think it was the 9th of September, I started as a journalist. thanks to Docky, who gave me a chance. He gave me 2 shifts in that month. And 3 months later, unfortunately, I was retrenched because of cost-cutting measures and last in, first out scenario. And I remember phoning him and saying, I'll tell you what, December is around the corner. There will be a lot of people that would want to go on leave. I'll offer up my entire Christmas break, and I'll come and work for those people who don't want to work or who can't work because of other arrangements. And he said, okay, cool. We'll give you the Christmas period into New Year's. And January that year, he phoned me back and said, I'm sorry, but you need to be rewarded for this sort of commitment. Welcome to my team. And 10 years later, it was a 10-year journey after that. So it's amazing how what I thought was going to happen originally and initially, that was my own ambitions, but that was not the way it was meant to be. I still managed to get into the system and really live my dream. So it was 10 of the best years of my life was working as a sports journalist.
Yeah, yes, see. I remember also something that you didn't really mention, but when you did, I think it's obviously that December probably when you started, you actually drove up and down literally a few days apart from each other. You would come to work and literally work and then drive back home, all whatever 4 hours of whatever it took you to get home and back. So and that happened for quite some time. It wasn't just like for a week or so. It was for quite some time until you moved to Johannesburg.
Yeah, you're quite right. I used to, listening to you, I have to laugh because I think I was a bit crazy, but I used to travel 3.5 hours from Newcastle to Randburg, start a shift with SuperSport Blitz for 8 hours, and then drive 3.5 hours back to Newcastle. And I used to get back, my shift used to finish at around 12 o'clock at night. I would get in the car, drive back home, and probably get home at about 4 in the morning, and then sleep a couple of hours, and then go back to work. My real job in Newcastle as a sports rep that started at 8 in the morning, and then I would work a full day, 8 to 5, and then go home and sleep all the lost sleep that I didn't have over the weekend. But that was life, and I was prepared to do that job, to chase the dream. I knew that I had to make sacrifices along the way, and I was prepared to do that. And I have not have a family that supported me in a big way to make that possible. And I sometimes wonder why my wife didn't call it quits in my marriage, but she hung around, and yes, I can look back with great memories of the way it started and all the memorable things that happened.
Yeah, that is very true. I think your wife needs to be commended for sticking by you in those times. And even after, I mean, afterwards when you guys went back to Newcastle at some stage, you went back again. But tell us about you actually in your time at SuperSport. You didn't just work at Blitz. Blitz was predominantly what you did, but over time they obviously realized that you're quite a good talent. I mean, because you're a hard worker as well. You're willing to put in the. I mean, when I started at SuperSport, also at Blitz, you weren't just a journalist. You were actually one of the guys in the control room getting the stuff on air. So it wasn't just a matter of doing a story and putting a voice to it, and that's the end of it. It was more than that. I mean, you were doubling up. You were doing journalist shift. You were doing producer shifts. Basically, those days we were calling it producers. And above that, you started becoming a presenter as well, where you hosted quite a few shows. I mean, I'm not going to be the one to say it, but I mean, I want you to tell us the story. Just take us through some of the shows that you actually hosted. I mean, enough to say you were an anchor.
Yeah, sure. It's again lots of blessings, Jock. It's definitely not my doing. The man upstairs was very kind to me in my life, and still is. And I guess the passion came through, and a lot of people gave me opportunities in life because of that. Passion was really the driving force in me, and I was prepared to do anything to succeed. I was prepared to do anything to go to as possible. I mean, for me, in the beginning, in 2007, walking into that building, every dream in my life had become a reality. if you as a youngster, if you sit at home and you envision becoming something big, the next big doctor or chartered accountant or actor or professional sportsman, and it literally happens to you, I guess you have to pinch yourself. And I remember my first SuperSport badge that I received, that you see the presenters wear on their jackets and their blazers. I slept with my SuperSport S under my pillow when I received it for the first time. That was like the biggest. I still have it, actually. It's in my room. It's not under my pillow, but I still have it. So it was really a big thing. And I was lucky to be able to be in front of the camera as well in my life. Also, a bit of luck. Tola Nchinga, who's a great friend, was sick during a Varsity Cup production. And they wanted someone to fulfill his role in front of camera. And I was asked and do that. So I arrived for a television production unprepared to be on TV, and that was never part of my dream. If it happened, great, but it was never part of the plan for me originally. And there I was nervous as can be. I wanted to pass out. The biggest stress I've ever faced in my life was putting a headphone or earphone into your ear, and you have a director talking to you saying, right, you're on air, cue, there we go, talk. And you have to say the right things and do the right things as well, and work according to time, etc. So it was quite funny. I still don't know how I got through my first gig as an on-field presenter, but again, a lot of people, great people behind the scenes. Talking about shows, I was able to stand in for a legend that you interviewed last week. I'm a big fan of Cobus Visa, not only as a rugby player but as a human being. I was blessed to fill his chair in that studio, that BFF, that Super Rugby studio, when he was absent. So I had the opportunity to be the fill-in there, if I can put it that way. BFF Pier in the absence of Fani de Villiers. I did a lot of Afrikaans fill-in roles. So those were the two shows. Talks and Chops, I was able to fill in for Talks himself. I think I might have filled in for Brayton a couple of times as well. So I mean, looking back, a lot of people supported me and opened doors for me that I can only thank for believing in me. And I was able to put all the pieces together in my life to be able to work in that environment for many years. And then CakeNet came along and they started a breakfast show called Dagbreek. A couple of years ago, and they came to me and said, right, we need a sports anchor that's Afrikaans speaking. Would you like to do that? And suddenly life became a bit more hectic. So I would, at that stage we were living in Johannesburg, so I would do a blitz shift until 12 o'clock at night, and I would go home and I would sleep for 3 hours, and then I had to get up at 3:30 in the morning because I had to be at Theo for Dagbreek at 4:30. And then they put makeup on you, and 5:30 you're in studio, 6 o'clock you're live, and you run a breakfast show until 9 o'clock in the morning, and then you debrief, and then you move on, and then you start all over again with the sequence. So a lot of crazy times, I guess, but maybe that's the reason I don't have hair, Jock. Now I've come to think of it, I understand why I don't have hair. So great times and great memories in all those positions that I was trusted with, if I can put it that way.
Yeah, tell me, you obviously, you've interviewed quite a lot of people as well. I mean, you mentioned the FIFA World Cup, Confederations Cup, Currie Cups that you were at, and I mean, so many things. And obviously, the shows that you were on. And in your journalistic career, you sometimes had the opportunity to go out and do shoots and stuff, as we would call it. Who would you say was the greatest person that you've interviewed so far?
That is such a tough question to ask. I was able to interview many people. I'm going to break it up for you. In 2009, I was placed with a cameraman called Kingsley Brown. We were placed in Bloemfontein to follow Spain during the FIFA Confederations Cup. And I remember in June, it was still can't think of a colder period in my life that I experienced. And I had to try and get an interview with the Spanish soccer team. Now, that's not easy. Let me tell you that that's going to test any person out there. If you try and land an interview one-on-one with a international football player, good luck if you get that right, and well done if you do get it right. And I remember they were placed at the Windmill. I think it was called the Windmill Hotel in Bloem, and it was minus temperatures. And I remember we went to the hotel and we sat outside on the steps. And I said to him, "Listen, Kingsley, we've got to make a call. How desperate are we to get an interview with legends of the game? Are we going to sit here and wait, or are we going to bail and come back tomorrow and try again?" And we both decided that even meant that we had to sit and become ice blocks, we were going to get the interview. So the Spanish media manager came out to us and she said, "What do you want?" And I said, "I want an interview." And she said, "Sorry, it's not going to happen." And I said to her, "Well, then it's going to be on your hands if we become sick. If we sit here and things happen, it's going to be on your hands. So I'm going to sit right here, even if it means freezing. You're going to have to do this on fall, but I'm not going anywhere until I get an interview." So I sat down on the steps, and I'll tell you, Jock, 5 minutes, and I was regretting my decision and my brave approach. And finally, she came out and she said to me, "Okay, obviously we're not going to go away." So she was obviously looking at us through her hotel room, and she said, "I'll give you Chavi." So I said, "Hey, bring Chavi. I bring whatever you want. Bring Pepe Reina, Fernando Torres. I don't care. Just bring someone who speaks half English." And Chavi came out, and we had a one-on-one interview, exclusive interview. And I remember that next day we were walking from the hotel to where the Spanish team were having breakfast and lunch. And I was walking next to Fernando Torres, and I said, "Please, Fernando, can I have an interview with you?" And he declined it. He said, "No, you've got to work through the media manager." On the way back from that same venue back to the hotel, I tried again, this time with Pepe Reina. Again, same reply, "Can't have an interview." And they played South Africa in the third and fourth playoff at the Royal King Sports Palace. Now, what happens is they have a media zone. So the players have to go through this media zone before they get to the bus. So you have an opportunity to grab an interview if a player gives you that opportunity. And the Spanish team came through that media zone, and I remember putting my mic out. And as Pepe Reina came past or around the corner, I pulled back my mic thinking that he was probably going to just decline me again. And he stopped in front of me and he said, "Do you still want that interview?" And I was like, "What? Like, are you, what?" So there I was, one-on-one with Pepe Reina, and he remembered what we tried in Bloemfontein, and obviously we weren't successful. And there I was standing talking to one of the greats of the game, and Fernando Torres came after him, and he stood behind Pepe Reina. I was able to talk to him. During the World Cup, I interviewed Lionel Messi. I mean, that was ridiculous. Standing at a soccer World Cup, I mean, SuperSport called it once in a lifetime. That was our slogan. And there we were, Lionel Messi standing in front of you. And I mean, that was incredible. I've got a lot of respect for South African sportsmen, so it's not ignoring the greats of South African sport, but Graham Smith, John T. Rhodes, Clive Rice, James Small. I was a big fan of James Small. He was like a hero to me when I grew up and had the opportunity to interview James. There are so many great people that came. That was part of my journey as a journalist, that I was able to interview and talk to. And sometimes you pinch yourself and you look back at your career and you think how awesome it was and how blessed you are to be able to tell the stories and sharing commentary with former Springboks and for sharing studios with former Springboks. And there you are, having started your life in a small town in northern KwaZulu-Natal, and a couple of years later, you're sitting in a big studio with big lights on you in Randburg, sharing your dream with the public and with great people next to you. So yeah, it's a great story.
Yes, it is indeed. Wow, some super names there. Johan, the main reason of the chat is obviously to focus a bit on rugby, but I mean, I know from knowing you that you are a massive sports fanatic in such a way that you compete as well. Or I don't know if you still compete, but I know for all your life you did. I mean, you're a big cricket player. I know you. I'm not sure if you played rugby, but I would assume you did. I don't even know what you have done in your life, in all honesty, but I know those two things. Like I know you're a massive rugby supporter, but I know for a fact you are a cricket player, a bit of golf and stuff. I mean, you were playing for a club in Newcastle and stuff. Take us through your life as a well. I mean, from growing up and where it all started, and maybe you can to kill two birds with one stone. Maybe tell us how the rugby dream started for you. As a supporter, player, whatever the case may be.
So, Jock, I grew up in a house where my dad was a wrestler, not the American wrestle that you see on television, the amateur, the old school wrestling. And my dad was a lightweight champion, South African champion in the 70s. He came from Port Elizabeth and he fought under the alias of Blitz. How ironic is this, Jock? I don't know if you know this, but my dad's alias was Blitz Ferreira, and it was spelled Blitz. And I still have his robe that he came into the ring with. It's a pity I don't have that with me now. It's in it's put away in my cupboard. But his name was on the back of his robe, Blitz Ferreira.
Oh wow, that is amazing.
And there I would go. There I would go on to work for Blitz. So it's quite a cool story that I like to share with people. So I grew up in a house where my dad coached boxing. He coached wrestling. In Newcastle, it was different because he grew up in Port Elizabeth. His promoter was Lefer. I never saw him wrestle because he stopped when I was born in the late 70s. I was born in 78, and I think he finished in 79. He passed away in 1997. So grew up not so much with a cricket and rugby background, but in a sports family. My brother and I took a liking to cricket pretty early in our lives, and we would cut the lawn and make a cricket pitch. And we would take our pocket money and we would buy a scorebook and we would play cricket against one another. And my brother is 3 years younger than I am, and he always wanted to bat first, so I was always bowling. And he was. We played 11 men per team, and every time he lost his 11th wicket, at that stage we played 11 wickets, but when he lost his 11th wicket, he would run into the house and lock himself in my parents' room, and I would not have an opportunity to bat. And that was, I constantly fell for that every single school holiday. So that was pretty annoying that I didn't really get the chance to bat. So cricket was my big passion. Rugby, I played my rugby game when I was in State 4, so that was grade 6. And I was a prop jock. I'm really working hard in this lockdown to go back to that sort of weight to become a prop again. But so that was the only position I ever played because in high school I had a very serious bicycle accident. And I went over the handlebars and I hurt my knee pretty badly. And I really couldn't play contact sport after that. So a teacher of mine, Mr. Jean Leroux, said to me, well, you want to remain part of rugby, so why don't you become a referee? So I said to him, geez, Mr. Leroux, those are the people that get shouted at every weekend. I don't know if my nerves will hold too much abuse. So I don't think that's a career I would like to pursue. But if you need someone, he said, no, I'm pretty serious. I need someone right now. Here's a T-shirt, there's a whistle, here's a rule book. We're going to start next week. And my first game I refereed was an under-14 B match in Newcastle. And I took a liking to it. And after school, suddenly it became more serious. And suddenly I was on the Natal Top 40 panel with people like Craig Hubert and Marius Jonker and Stuart Berry, who became good friends of mine. And today I'm still good mates with Mara, or Marius Jonker. I call him Mara. And then I was on a plane to go to Manchester in England as an exchange referee for Natal. and I refereed a festival game between a club called Bowden. They were celebrating their 125th anniversary at that stage, and they were playing a Barbarians team. And I remember going onto the field, and the assessor that they gave me said to me, Johan, this is a festival game. It's not about you, it's about the players. So I want you to let the game flow. The final score was 50-43 in the favor of the Barbarians. But funny enough, in that game, Steve Diamond and Jim Mallender played for the Barbars. And at that stage, they were the coaches of the Sale Sharks. They then put in a request for me to referee the Sale Sharks against Rotherham. So I had a provincial game whilst in England. They scheduled me. And I remember going to the Sale training ground, and Charles Marais was part of that setup. And I did the first. It was raining in Manchester, as it pretty much does most days.
Yeah.
And I remember Charles being substituted at half time. And during the second half, there was a line out. And I remember just hearing my name. And I turned around and he said, I've left you something in the change room. And Charles gave me his Sale Sharks jersey and shorts. That's still. I'm a Warder jock, so I still have that as well.
Wow.
Yeah, I came back and was able to go to the Cape Schools Week. And then the big highlight from a rugby referee point of view was running touch for the IRB under the 19 Rugby World Cup in Durban, a tournament that South Africa won. Alistair Greaves was the captain, and Lofi Elof, who stays in Paul, was the coach of that team.
Yes.
So I actually finished my rugby refereeing career at the World Cup. I felt that was realistically that was the furthest I could go, and it was a good time to finish. And I came to Paul 2 years ago, and a friend of mine who was a Currie Cup referee, Francois Grunhold, grabbed hold of me and said, "We need some refs at Paul Gymnasium Primary. Would you be able to fill in when we need someone?" And suddenly I was back in kit and. Looking much different. I bulked up quite a bit since my the last time I had to put a jersey onto my shoulders or over my shoulders. And there the whistle was back in my hand. And I must say, I've now refereed a couple of years, running up and down and sharing the passion with schoolboys. So I've done a couple of schools matches here in the Cape,
nice.
Majority of the time in Paul and Stellenbosch. I'm not going to say I actually wanted to make a comeback this year. Now I have an opportunity to probably get properly fit to do it all over again without any expectations, just to pick up the whistle and make a difference on the field in a game that I really love, and just enjoy the company of the people that are playing it.
Yes, man, that's awesome. You know what? This is so funny. I mean, yesterday I had a guy on that was also a referee, so it's kind of like, wow, okay, I didn't see this one coming, because I actually forgot about your refereeing, time that you had. I mean, I am aware of it, but I'm not aware of all the stories you've been sharing so far. You've been a referee, and that's been your biggest contribution to rugby in that sense. But I mean, you're still a supporter, and you grew up in Natal, so I mean, I know you're a Shark supporter. Are you still a Shark supporter, by the way?
Yeah, that's. I guess we all become supporters before we become journalists. So I grew up with the Sharks, and I'm still a Shark supporter, even though I stay in Paul and in the Western Cape. Nothing against the Stormers. I love the Stormers as well, but I'm a KZN boykie. That's where I grew up, and I'll always be a banana boy at heart.
Yeah.
I was blessed to work on the Currie Cup final in Durban when the Sharks played against Western Province in 2010. A game that the Sharks won. That was pretty cool, because we started our build-up at the beachfront at 7 o'clock in the morning. I remember we did a live crossing into Blitz, and I was able to talk to Peter Miller on the rooftop of the hotel as part of the build-up. I mean, that was crazy, but I was able to do that and build up towards the stadium. Still a Shark supporter, but I guess over time you become, I'm not going to say less passionate. Obviously, the passion will always be there, but I guess maybe a bit less fanatic. I remember the Super Rugby final of 2007. I was in that stadium. I watched Brian Abana break every Shark's heart by scoring that late try under the poles, and the conversion obviously happening. And I became good mates with Jaco van der Westhuizen after that. And I always think back of that 2007 final, Jaco van der Westhuizen climbing up the poles, and he stood on the crossbar, and he took off his jersey, and he had a white T-shirt on. And I always joke when I talk to Jaco about that moment. And I was sitting on the stands, and the majority of the people had left, and I was still sitting there replaying the try that Abana scored, because I was convinced that the Sharks were going to win Super Rugby competition that year. And Brian took that away with that try in the dying moments. But what a great advert for South African rugby on that specific day. And again, just be able to be a fan in a stadium like that was pretty cool. And able to, after that in my life, watch at least the Currie Cup victory at Kings Park, but never seen a Super Rugby win where the Sharks claim the trophy at the end of it all. The Bulls have had a couple of chances to do that, but as the Sharks, we haven't. I thought that 2020 might be our year, but it looks like we're not going to see that happen.
Yeah, I was about to ask you, how do you feel about, I mean, you guys were playing so well this year, and then this happened. I mean, I think it's, yes, if I was a Shark supporter, I wouldn't know what to do, because, I mean, what more can you guys do to win this trophy? You've had so many opportunities. I think the Sharks is the South African team that's been in the most finals, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, you could say that it was a good opportunity for the Sharks to win Super Rugby this year, but I don't really, not against what you're saying, but I still believe that you get into a playoff system, and it's a whole season, and I think it's you as a Shark supporter, even I would not say that they deserve a trophy based on 7 matches. I think that's the beauty of Super Rugby, is it tests you throughout, and it was still a tough run to come. It would have been nice to watch a possible playoff game, maybe even in Cape Town, between the Stormers and the Sharks. Who knows? But it was not meant to be. Obviously, I'm sad. I'm not sad for just rugby. I'm sad for what the world is facing. I'm a people's person. I'm glad to see the impact on people's lives and livelihoods, and we're not able to watch sport. You said it now. I'm a sports fanatic, and I'm missing playing sport. I'm missing watching sport. It's nice to share these memories with you and on this platform, but the world will probably never be the same again. And for that, I'm really, in my heart, I'm bleeding, especially for schools, grade 7s and grade 12s, last year's primary school, high school, to have an opportunity to play inter schools. That's really big in Paul Boys and Paul Gym. I mean, that's one of the highlights on the world schools calendar. And for that to be taken away, it hasn't been confirmed. I'm just saying, for someone to not have that possibility to fulfill fixtures for the year in a last school year, it's really really heartbreaking.
Yeah, that's true. Tell me, Johan, favorite stadium that you've ever visited or that you would like to visit?
Jock, again, if I look back at my commentator life, I was blessed to commentate at every single rugby stadium in South Africa.
Cool.
I remember sitting in Durban and commentating the Sharks and the Free State in a Currie Cup match. I remember the Nelson Mandela Bay Stadium with its great vantage point, sitting high up in stands doing rugby commentary there. I remember Newlands, sitting next to Tox van der Linde, outside with the people around you. There are so many favorites for different reasons. If I had to single out one, I really do like the Shark Tank for the atmosphere that it brings, and just for personal memories that I was able to build up as a youngster and after school as well. So I have to say, from a memory point of view, as a rugby loving fan, I would single out the Shark Tank, but at the same time, be able to actually broadcast the game at Newlands was a great ambition of mine, and I was able to do that. I never did a test match. I never did Super Rugby, but that's also okay. That was the way it was planned out for me in my life. But probably Kings Park, followed Newlands.
Oh, those are two great games. Luckily, I've had the opportunity to go to Newlands because it's quite sad. Also, like you were touching on just now about this whole pandemic that's hit the world now. I mean, who knows if we're going to see another match at Newlands again before they, demolish it. As we know, that's the plan at this stage. So yeah, let's hope somehow they can get something going again this year where there's actually fans. I mean, it's one thing to say the rugby is going to start behind closed doors, but nobody wants to see Newlands play its last match behind closed doors. That would just be very wrong in so many ways. I think Newlands, as the home of rugby in South Africa, deserves a proper send-off with a full capacity stadium. And if it be a Springbok game, then, that would be even better. You mentioned that that you got that Bath jersey and pants or shorts from Charles Marais. Is there any other? Are you a memorabilia collector? Or is there something else that stands out for you that's very special? That if someone says, "Yo, I'd like that thing,"
So,
you like, there's no way you'll part ways with it.
Jock, I'm going to let you into my life and those watching. I'm going to show you. So my wife bought me a trophy cabinet that I'm very proud of, and I'll share some of my memorabilia with you and the viewers. So this is what it looks like. Now the medals, don't be fooled. It's running medals as well. And that game, from a referee point of view, this was quite cool. The first time I ran touch for Natal and the Falca at that stage, that was in 2001. The Bowden match that I was talking about is they gave us this this after the match. You can see it there. There we go. And then I was able to do a bit of radio work. I had my own radio show here in the Cape for a radio station, Bok Radio. In 2018, I was awarded Show of the Year. So this trophy, there we go. This trophy really means a lot from a broadcasting point of view. That is an honourable place. Just to show you Sergio Ramos, just to prove the World Cup thing. So
yes.
I was a bit of an autograph hunter as well. So there's Sergio Ramos that was part of the team, and Xabi Alonso. There's his autographed picture as well. So the reason I have this is not for anything else but to appreciate where you come from, appreciate how lucky you've been, look back at things you achieved in life, because it's important to understand where you're going if you know where you've come from. And I have two daughters, and I want them to appreciate and value, not awards. We're not awards driven. Let me just I don't measure success by the trophies that you win. Trophies is a bonus. To me, it's about competing and getting up and doing something positive with your life and making a difference. I'm all about that, making a difference in the lives of others and making a difference in your own life, doing the right things. So that's very important to me. The decorations and medals is part of the journey, so that you can sit back one day and look at what you've done with your life. And that's a reminder that comes with hard work and a lot of sweat and blood and tears, a lot of sacrifices, but there's no ways that anyone can ever stop your dream from happening. You decide when your dream is finished. You decide when the journey ends, and only you can make that decision. And for every person out there, never give up, never stop believing, because it will only be over when you say it's over.
Yeah, that's true. Very, very, very true. Johan, you've touched on so many of the questions I've had, but I mean that's not the end of the world. Tell me, you've told us a lot of stories. Is there any? How can I ask this? Some interesting, let's take your broadcasting career, because I mean it's played a big role in your life. Any interesting or funny stories that you can tell us that people, like that viewers don't know of, that you can share? For instance, something that might have happened that fortunately nobody saw it on air.
Yeah, I can tell you quite a few, but I'll tell you a couple of favorites, and I'm sure you'll appreciate where it's come from. And if you listen to it, I remember that I was given an opportunity to broadcast or comment on cricket the One Day Cup in South Africa. I was appointed on a couple of matches to work as an Afrikaans commentator, and on the first game, the director was, I'm going to protect his name as well, but the director we had never worked together, so we were new to each other's company, and he did these. Now, okay, just to tell people at home, so when you do a broadcast, you have to be at the venue 2 hours before the event starts, and they do a rundown of a fax check and technical equipment and mic check, and they divide you into segments where you're going to commentate, with who are you going to commentate, and at what times, etc., etc. And we go through different scenarios, look at the weather, players, etc. And I decided to pull a prank and go to the producer on the day, seeing as it was my first cricket match that I was going to commentate on. So I walked up to him and I said, "Eddie, tell me something." But I took him to the side, and I sort of whispered so that no one could hear me. And I said, "Eddie, I'm a bit concerned. They've booked me on this cricket game. Why does one fielder get to wear gloves when they field and others don't?" And he looked at me and he said, "Johan, are you full?" And I said, "I don't understand why one guy stands behind those sticks, and then he gets to catch the ball with gloves. What is that called?" So obviously, I think the alarms went on in a big way, because I was about to commentate in Afrikaans, and I was trying to figure out what a wicketkeeper was doing behind the stumps.
Yeah.
So I was using all weird terminology. So obviously, I finally said to him, "Listen here, it's just a prank. So don't stress. It's all good." Another a real funny moment, not funny for me. I guess it was pretty funny for others. But I was doing an on-air presentation, sitting in studio, and Jock, for some reason, the only fly in Randburg, decided to come into the studio at that stage while we were on air. And I was presenting with Leanne Paulik. She was to the left of where I was sitting. And I remember talking, I was reading the teleprompter, and the fly went into my mouth as I was talking. Now that's pretty difficult, because you have to keep your pose. We're on live television, and live television does not wait for anyone. You have to react in the moment. So I had to negotiate the fly, and then still keep my pose. And that was a balancing act of note. So that was funny, and you can't call that anything can happen in the live environment.
Yeah.
I'll tell you this story. This is again a true story. I was scheduled to do a 4-day cup cricket match. Now at that stage, they sent us to various venues across South Africa, and we had a cameraman had a backpack, and we would go live into SuperSport Blitz at any given time to give the viewers an update of what was happening at the venue, the latest score, who's batting, etc., and then do a rundown at the end of the day. Now, I was in Bloemfontein, and they gave me the Knights and the Dolphins to do for 4 days, and I was standing out in the middle, and Darren Smith was the captain of the Dolphins, and Dean Elgar was the captain of the Knights. And Dean was a touch late, so the match referee was Cyril Mitchley. So Cyril was playing around with his coin, and every time he flipped it in the air, he would catch it, and he would look at what it was going to be, heads or tails. So Darren looked at him and he said, "Cyril, please, would you stop that? I'm thinking I'm going to get the coin toss, and I'm looking at you, and I'm a bit superstitious, so stop spinning that coin. So Cyril goes, "Oh, Darren, please, man, that's just that's nonsense." So he spins it, and it lands heads, and he spins it, and it lands heads, and in that time, Dean makes his way out to the middle, and I look at Darren and I say, "Tails never fails." And Cyril goes, "Right, we're about to do the coin toss. Darren, your call." Zip, into the air it goes. Darren goes, "Heads," and it lands tails. So I do the interview with Darren, having second, Dean first on the toss. It's a beauty of a day for the bowlers. It's a cloudy day. They had rain overnight, so it was a great decision to win the toss and bowl. And there we went. And the Knights win the toss. They decide to bowl, and they roll the Dolphins pretty quickly. So at the end of, I think it was day 3, I was having an interview after the day's play with Darren out in the middle. I asked for his presence, and he's a big Everton fan. I think Everton played West Ham on that day in the Premier League, and Darren said, "Johan, please, can we not do this interview right now? Everton's playing." So I said, "Darren, I don't know why you're stressed. Everton's going to win 2-1. So he came out, we did the interview, he ran back, and we were sitting putting the package together of that day's play, and true's Bob, Everton won 2-1. We were sitting watching it in our edit suite, and the final whistle goes, and Everton wins 2-1. And Darren sends me a message. He says, "Johan, okay, seriously, you've called the toss, you've called the result. Please give me the lotto numbers." So, so it was you were let into a lot of people's lives, and able to share some nice moments with various sports stars. So there were some nice ones. There were some funny ones, but there were some special times on the cricket field and on the rugby field, and just nice talking about it again.
Yeah, yes, there's some really nice stories. Tell me, Johan, if you could, someone actually asked the question just now, and I'm going to just put it on the screen. Would you give SuperSport another go if given the opportunity again?
Yeah, so that's a very tough question to answer. My life has changed over the couple of years. I'm working as a sales manager for an animal health company. It's really, again, very blessed to be in that position, sharing this journey with the team that I'm responsible for. And it's. I always said, Jock, I'll answer it like this. I always said that I'll never live in Johannesburg, but I did for 7 years of my life. I got to make good friends and work there. So you should rule out anything in your life because your life is penned out for you. And I really believe that. I believe that you do the right things with the opportunities that you do get. I'm really blessed to have worked in that environment. I'll go back to the way it started. If you said to me in 2007, as a young, upcoming wannabe journalist, that you were going to work for 10 years in this medium, and you were going to do the Football World Cup, you were going to do matches, Currie Cup matches, French top 14, I would have laughed at you, and I would have said that that's all dreams, and that can't happen. And here I am telling those stories. I want to summarize it like this, Jock, because it's a story that's important to me.
Yeah.
Before the World Cup in 2010, we were based in Polokwane, and we had to do team setters for the World Cup. Now, at that stage, we had no fans as yet. We had no matches at that stage. It was part of a build-up towards what the various venues were going to be looking like, and who were going to play there, etc. And we had nothing. So I said to the cameraman, we're in a bit of trouble, but we have lions. There's a lion's den. I'm going to get into that lion's den because the indomitable lions are playing in Polokwane, and we're going to use that as the angle. And he said to me, "There's no ways. You are totally crazy. We're not doing that." I said, "Kingsley, I don't care what you say. You can, by all means, we're going to have a trainer go with us into this cage. He attack us. So you go to the furthest corner of the cage and you be safe. I'll take it upon myself. As long as I have the mic and you can hear me, then we're good to go. So there we are, into a cage. And the trainer said to me, Johan, whatever happens, first of all, the lions are fed. So they shouldn't really have interest in your flesh. Second of all, I am right behind you. And if the lion moves or wants to attack, I'm here. Don't stress. I'm just outside of your shot, your television shot. And I remember walking, and I was terrified. I wanted to cry. If I could cry, I probably would. But I thought, this is it. We are doing the World Cup in South Africa. It's time to open the World Cup bang and do something that is totally out of your comfort zone. And I went to kneel next to the lion, and I said to Kingsley, my friend, we've got one shot. So roll camera, and when you're happy that you've got everything, your focus is there, I'm gonna talk. And we did it. So I did a bit of a scene set. And I remember Kingsley took a photo of that moment. And as I was talking, the lion turned to me and he licked his lips. I have a photo that I'll share it with everyone watching. But I have a photo where the lion looks at me and he licks his lips. He didn't do anything, but I never saw that because I was so focused on the camera in front of me, and I didn't want to make any trigger movements because I would have probably become someone's lunch. So I was very cautious and just finishing up. And when I did the link, I got up and I took a huge breath, deep breath. I'm still alive. Very stupid, Johan, but it was worth it. And walking back with the trainer, and out we went out of the cage, and we put this together. And I mean, the reaction was phenomenal, because I mean, there was a journalist in a suit sitting next to a lion doing a link, and the lion turned at the right stage, licked his lips. And I guess that summarizes where I've come from and where I was able to go as an individual. Taking risks, good risks, not as bad as being getting into a lion's den, but really being lucky enough to be able to tell stories like this. And I would like to. My boss asked me the other day. He said, "So, what's your not your goal, but the sort of the legacy? How do you want to be remembered?" And I had to think about that. And I guess it was, if I look back at the SuperSport career or broadcasting career, I would like to look back at my life as someone that made a positive difference in the lives of people that I was able to work with and be associated with. And if that's the mark that I could leave on life, then I'll be happy. If I could make a difference in someone's life from a working point of view or corporate point of view, or from a sport point of view, anything, then that was all worth it. So that would be the legacy that I would like to leave behind one day. Although sports media has taken a back seat, and corporate has become very much of a part of who I am today.
Well, I love the way you finished that off. I mean, it's perfect, because I mean, I actually forgot to mention this in the beginning, and I should have. But you made me realize that now when I was listening to you, and especially this part, and hopefully you can, even if you just show this part of the video to your boss when you do get back to work again one day, hopefully soon, I can say for once, you made a positive impact on my life. When I started at Blitz, it wasn't very long after that I ended up starting my website, theyellowcap.com, and you were one of the first guys to actually write for me, because when I started the website, not many people probably know this, I had zero knowledge of even putting words together, as in putting, for a story. So when I came up with the idea of the website, I was working at Blitz, and I thought, well, I've got the perfect thing to make this work. I work with a bunch of journalists. I'm going to ask them if they want to be part of it, and that's how we'll start it. And you were one of the first, I think you might be the first guy to ever write a story for me. And you wrote hundreds of stories. I can't really count all of them, because, I mean, I don't do that kind of thing. But for one, I think even now, after how many years, I mean, you don't write for me anymore, but I think if I had to count the amount of articles you used to write for me, it's still the most that anybody has written on the website. And I have subsequently, obviously, over the years, working with guys like you and other people at Blitz, I learned, the trade and how to write stories and stuff. And I'm not a journalist, and I'll never claim to be one, but I do try. But everything that I know today is because of people like you. I was also fortunate enough, you mentioned that you did the 2007 opening game of the World Cup. I actually remember when you said that, even before that, earlier tonight when I was thinking about, our chat, I actually remembered you and I did the 2015 opening ceremony and opening game of the World Cup. And, when you remember stuff like that, it's because of certain factors. And one thing that was nice working with you, and there's very few guys, I can't say in the world, but in that environment of Blitz, that is their work ethic is the way that yours was. I mean, you were always determined to do as much as you could, and and as professional as you can. And I think I learned a lot. It's not just about what I learned to do on my website today, but everything that I do. I'm sure it would be unfair to say that you did not play a role in my life, and I want to thank you for that, first of all. And I mean, second of all, I want to thank you for, for joining us tonight. I mean, it was actually flipping more fun than I actually imagined it was going to be. And this is what I enjoy so much about this series so far, is that I think I know someone, and then you discover stuff that you never ever knew. And I mean, I worked a better part of 6 or 7 years of those 10 years that you were at SuperSport. I worked with you. Funny enough, 1st of April was my 10-year anniversary, which I unfortunately couldn't celebrate at work. But it's one of those things. But thank you for your time, man. Yes, I appreciate it so much. It was really, really one of the nicest chats I've had so far. And man, I really hope whatever you do in the future is going to be just as good and kind to you as, what you have done already, and the way you've touched people and stuff. Especially me as well. You've done a lot for me, in my life, besides the stuff that I've already mentioned. And as I've said, thank you very much for tonight. I really, really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks, Jock, for those kind words. I'm only one person in a big pond, and for me, it's all about the difference you make every day when you get the blessing of waking up. Is to try and use the hours that's given to you, and to use it as best possible, and to put it to good use, and hopefully someone else can benefit from what you've done in a day's work. So thank you for the opportunity. It's nice to touch base with you again, and much appreciated, and all the best with your series. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to look back at some of the nice highlights and nice things that I don't always get to share with people and talk about. I hope we see each other someday, somewhere. And keep going, and all the best for what lies ahead in this year.
Thank you so much, Johan. Stay well, and regards to the family. As I say at the end of each show, stay safe, wash those hands, and just look after yourself. Thanks so much.